This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. All right. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday afternoon live stream. Today, I am joined by Kemp Edmonds. Kemp, what's happening today? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Anthony. I am the managing director of the Canadian Workplace Culture Index. It is a project where we take the opinions of real Canadians, create an index, and allow organizations to certify their workplace culture against those opinions. We're launching in Canada, and we're really excited to be looking to the rest of the world as well as we grow over the next couple of years.
So, I mean, a lot of people talk about culture. I know you've lived it in so many different organizations. I imagine that you've seen different cultures, some high performing, some not so performing. But why in 2021, which is when we are, why is it important to be able to start tracking, culture and giving something maybe more firm to measure, where it's something that others might consider a little bit soft, generally speaking?
Yeah, I think the interesting part about, the softness of it is, in my mind, is it's hard for people to wrap their heads around something that isn't sort of mathematical and is always evolving and always changing. And when I look at a spreadsheet and business metrics, they're plain as day. And when we think about workplace culture and the organizational culture that is shared by employees, we realize that this is something that's always evolving, always changing. It's made up of all of the people's contributions and thoughts, and it's intangible. And that's what makes it really hard for business leadership to sink their teeth into, I think. I think there are a lot of progressive leaders and leaders of larger organizations that are seeing this more and more. People from the culture space used to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think the new way we look at it is that culture is strategy. Culture is a very important component of your organizational strategy for growth, for success, for motivating people, and for bringing your community together, your customers, your partners, your publics, as I like to say. People always say, what is that? I say, well, your publics is any person who might be reached by information about your organization. I think, especially in 2021 into 2022, as we go, the Great Resignation, a whole new generation of professionals who have different expectations of workplace culture, of flexibility, of diversity and inclusion, of flatness, of not this sort of traditional top-down approach. That's the expectation of a lot of employees, and the way to bring them into your company and help them succeed is to have a culture that's welcoming and open and modern.
Yeah. And what I hear out of that, like in addition to the fact that it's kind of tough to measure or can be, is really the changes, and the rapid changes that culture in the time that I've been a strategist and in consulting, it's evolved from, yes, culture eats strategy, to culture is strategy, to the changing expectations, needs, and demands of people. And the other day I did a talk on the value proposition canvas and the business model canvas, looking at your entire business and all it's the sum of the parts, but amplified. And they're really looking at, like, as a company value, your talent, your culture, your people is part of that, both outwardly to publics, which I like the idea of the publics being the consumer who buys the stuff, because you want to work for a company that treats their people well. But it's so important to do that for prospective and future employees. So maybe we can touch on like the storytelling element of it, and without not storytelling like being full of shit and trying to hype yourself up, but really like how it gives substance to a brand and a company.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you made me think of this metaphor. I think it's really a good one for, what workplace culture is and what it means. Is you think about the individual and you think about that person's health and wellness overall, right? There are lots of business leaders who are morbidly obese. There are lots of extremely successful individuals who suffer from mental health issues. When we think of great workplace culture, it's a healthy body, it's a healthy mind for your organization. I think that's a really strong metaphor and a good way to look at it. And in light of that, I think I kind of forgot your question. So if you want to repeat that one for me, I'll get right to it.
No, I really like the idea of a healthy mind and healthy body, but I was sometimes I forget my questions, but asking about like why is it important for that healthy mind body as it relates to culture being important as part of, retention and attraction in 2022 and beyond, because I think it's going to be a core part. If we took that analogy, like you're dating somebody, they want to know you're fit, although we're shallow, but anyways, I'll let you go take that.
So I think storytelling, how do you tell the story was really the question there. And I think the way you want to look at that is you actually want to let your employees tell the story. When I go to a great careers page, and sadly, that is kind of, for most organizations, the storytelling opportunity for workplace culture is, the whole body. So the whole organization and the whole sort of persona, the marketing to consumers and everything. But really, it's that employer brand, we call it. And that really happens and pops up and lives on that careers page. Some large organizations might even have social accounts just for careers. And I think for employees and prospective employees, besides those places, you're also going to want to talk to people who have maybe previously worked at that company. Maybe they currently work in the role that you're in. Those are the people, the ways that you're going to truly understand the culture. And I think not being afraid to ask about it, in the process as a job applicant. But I think for the company, that careers page is everything. The voice of the employee, letting the best ones are the ones where it's like, hey, here's Jill, she's from marketing, and here's what Jill thinks about working here, and here's Sam, and here's what Sam thinks about working here. In our conversational chat survey, we ask people, hey, it's a beautiful sunny day and you're out at a picnic with family and friends. One of them asks you, what's it like to work at your company? What do you tell them? That is really, when we think about great storytelling and great workplace culture, it's the stories that your employees tell when they're not at work, when people are asking them about, hey, how do you like your work? How do you like working there? What's it like to work there? The answers to those questions from your employees are really going to be the story that's told about your culture.
No, I love that. And I think it's the difference between the perspective of management and hearing it from the higher ups versus the people that are living it day in and day out. One of the questions I have for you is about, I see organizations that are very, very successful, and they're kind of like successful despite their culture. And so they're like, I don't need to worry about my culture. I don't need to worry about my people because we're making money and we're making despite of that. And I think it's been okay for a while. And I wonder if that's going to, can people continue to be successful in the future without focusing on, explicitly focusing on their culture and their people? What do you think?
No, I don't think you can be. I think, it makes me think of sort of a construct I created called the RIM effect, RIM being the former maker of BlackBerry mobile devices. And, RIM was really successful, first to market with smartphones with full keyboards on them that were massively adopted. And, they thought, well, we know best. And, a rising tide lifted all smartphone boats. And RIM kept saying, oh, cameras, forget that. Oh, full screens, forget that. And suddenly, they thought they knew best. And they were a really successful business, incredibly successful over that time period. And they thought, well, we know best. We're not going to do those things. And suddenly, that myopic view that we don't have to worry about culture, or we don't have to worry about, what the general trends that consumers are looking for are, will result in the same, sort of devastating crash in the end. Ultimately, it's your product and service that are going to determine how successful you are as a business. And there are some organizations that don't focus on culture that find business success. But I think over the long term and over the long run, that's going to have, impacts that are going to be really negative. You're not going to get the best talent. You're not going to get the people who want to build the best culture, who want to work together really well with others. Not to say that, I'm sure there are a couple of businesses out there where it's not as important, but they might not think it's important, and they might not think it's something that's relevant, but it's actually happening regardless. Even if you don't think it's important, it's going on. And people are talking about it. And, whether or not you're involved and you're able to help shape the narrative, or you're conscious of it and you're monitoring it and getting feedback and improving on what you do, I think it's happening. And so there's no way to deny it. It's what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it interesting just how you talked about it. It's your product effectively. And you use the word talent. So I know some people who aren't living it in all the days, and they just think about it and they hear these words, they're almost buzzwordy, what is culture? What is talent? But as I hear it, I put it together as the talent and the culture, align with capability, and then ultimately output. And then the output is not only sales, because we started talking about sales before, but like profitability, but also like your experience of work. So because you've worked across different like functions in an organization, why is it important for talent, not even to have the right talent, but to be talent to be used in the right place? And I guess I don't want to say empowered, but you know what I mean? Like for them to have what they need to be successful. Why is that important? And why do CEOs need to think about that, or leaders need to think about that?
Yeah, I think, in our organization, we use the EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is from this book, Traction. And one of the things they talk about there is right person, right seat, and how important that is. Because you can have the wrong person in the right seat, meaning they're not the right person, but the role is the right one. And then you can have the right person, but in the wrong seat. It's a great person, but that function or that job they're doing, that's not for them. And I think, understanding that as sort of the fundamental nature of talent, that you have to align those things and get the right person into the right position to be as successful as possible for your organization is really important. And if you're not thoughtful about talent and conscious about it, you're going to end up with a bunch of people who are misaligned, and your teams aren't going to be, moving in lockstep and finding success for your organization, for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like it goes beyond just skill, but like flow and arrangement, and then making sure that everybody is like working together to be able to move the organizational objectives forward. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Cool.
Exactly. I think, one of my favorite stories.
I think one of my we're a little laggy, so no problem. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of my favorite stories is the story of the vitrolic revenue generator, and arguably this is somebody who is, super good at sales generally, or garnering revenue, but they're not nice to other people. And so, I've talked to lots of leaders about this person. And I think 10, 20 years ago, you'd keep that person around, they're bringing in the revenue. These days, you find that even though, you can have 20 salespeople on a team and you have the one person who sells the most, but their actions and behaviors, cause 10 other salespeople to feel not great about themselves, to feel defeated, to not be positive and not want to work hard. And so what I'm hearing now more from leaders is, I had no choice. I had to let them go, even though they were my top producer, because of the impact that was having on everybody else in the organization. And so, I think these days that a lot of the time that relates to sort of intolerance, whether that's gender-based, race-based. I worked with a leader, and they love to talk about people's looks on calls, and it was really strange and unprofessional. And I think those kind of things are really, now more than ever, it's just like, that is not acceptable. Like it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be bringing it up. It's kind of like showing people all your wounds and scars and scabs and stuff. It's like, people don't need to know about all your historic wrongs. They need to know about the awesome things you're going to do for them today and into the future.
I think that's really interesting. And again, just looking at it from a systems approach, what I heard, and it's never crossed my mind, and I live this every day, and it's looking like, hey, we have this one performer, and most people just look at their performance sort of in a bubble, but don't take into consideration the like negative effects that this person brings up, but then drops down. And I don't know if it's worth it. Actually, I don't know if it's thinking about it from like a net, like, oh, this person brings me plus 100 and I'm only losing negative 50 so that it's okay. I think that's the only thing that you can see. There's all of the other things you don't see, like people quitting and not telling you why, or people like avoiding conversations. So there's the opportunity cost as well as the net negative. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, for sure. That opportunity cost question is so big, right? Because you have that person working on big deals. Maybe somebody else who's better for everybody could close those same deals. The other thing that often happens with run and gun revenue folks sometimes, and I've been one myself, no doubt, is that they can rub the customer the wrong way. You don't know what business you're losing because of how they treat people. You don't know that in 3, 6, 12, 18 months that they've oversold that customer, or they've made an inaccurate statement in the sales process and guaranteed something that won't happen down the line. And so, not that those things always happen, but those are just things to be conscious of as you go forward with superstars. Hey, some of these people can be superstars, and that can be a challenge to have to make that hard decision.
Yeah. And I think both as it relates to culture, sales, and overall people, it's, if you hear it as a CEO or as a senior leader, like it's taken a long time to get to you. It doesn't get to you fast. So it's done damage. And then there's the information you never hear about, which is sometimes some of the worst ones. And then there's like the net lifetime value. There's both the lifetime value of negative, and then there's the lifetime value of positive. And so some people just think about it like in short and immediate terms versus the small, medium, long range. Thoughts on that from your experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is around really what great workplace culture creates, which is an attraction force for great talent, right? People who want to work at great companies and make great impact, they're going to leave, a company that isn't doing that for them, for the opportunity to work with great people and the chance to do that. Even, some people will go from the big company where they're on the top of the pile to say, actually, I'm going to go to this small company where, things are much more positive, where I'm in a position to effect change in a much better way. I think it's just so big for people to see what great workplace culture does. I think it's really interesting what we're seeing in the marketplace right now too. We look at the apolitical moves that we saw in the summer, and those were companies like Basecamp and Coinbase coming out to say, we do not want to have politics as part of our business. So they said to employees, don't use Slack or internal messaging systems to talk about politics. Please don't talk about it at lunch with your coworkers. What it ends up with is two divided sides. And there was a lot of pushback, right? It's like, how can you tell people not to talk about things like that? It seems a little bit strange. And so there is sort of this push and pull to say like, hey, this is really messy stuff and we don't want to get into it. But on the other side of the coin are humans who have opinions and who care about these issues. And if you're a company who's saying, well, we're not going to talk about, I'm trying to think of something that would be just like, if let's go back 1,000 years and, organizations are pro-slavery or anti-slavery. And it's like, wow, to think about that in today's context, it would just be ridiculous to think that any organization would, sit on one side of this issue or the other, because it seems so clear. And I think in time, everything's going to come out about, sort of how things sit. But I think you need to let people be people, right? The larger organization, the more opinions you're going to have. And the truth is, the more diverse teams I've worked on, the more diverse opinions and perspectives you get, the better outcomes you get. You get, when you have a singular sort of vision in mind, you miss out on ways to improve that. And so I think bringing in as many people as possible and having sort of the biggest tent you can for talent and attracting the best talent is clear to improve your business overall and help you grow better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear some people when we say like, hey, like this is, the culture or the values, the behaviors that we want to foster. It is not to suggest that it is a one way of doing things per se. In fact, but it's the being, it's how we want to show up for one another, and kind of set of a set of ground rules, expectations for us to feel supported, psychologically safe in, so that we can perform. It's so that like our actions and then the expectations of others have an alignment, so we're not caught off guard there. I've also found that, if you think you're going to try to keep something like hush hush, it never works. It only creates like mistrust and a feeling of lack of transparency when you're just trying to like hide stuff. So, you can't hide from anything in 2021. It's not possible. Actually, which is a great segue for the Workplace Culture Index. So tell me why you and your team decided that it was important to have this and to have it now as a tool for leaders to showcase what they are doing and potentially, some areas they might not be doing as well in.
So there are a lot of solutions out there that certify workplace culture, organizations, or declare them the best place to work. We're the only one of those programs that is not backed by a consultancy that wants to sell you more services by the hour. But more importantly, we're the only one that has created an index of the opinions of the average person. And so that's what we're actually benchmarking against. A lot of people think we're assessing the workplace culture. The workplace culture is assessed against the opinions of the average person in Canada. And so, that's one thing that makes us very different. So we've created this index with the Angus Reid Institute, one of the most well-known not-for-profit research organizations in Canada. And what we do is we actually certify workplace culture using a 5 to 10 minute conversational chat survey. It looks just like having a text message conversation on your phone, and employees go through that. We make it super simple for administrators. It's less than 30 minutes, and the outputs are incredible. So we have, almost a 10-page actionable insights report that, based on where you sit across 6 different workplace attributes. So the questions are weighted into these attributes. I'll give you an example. One of the questions we ask is, would you leave your job for a 10% raise? And that is weighted into the loyalty category. Another one is, bullying exists in my organization. That's part of the diversity and inclusion bucket. So we have buckets around satisfaction, employee connection, company caring, diversity and inclusion, information and recognition, and loyalty. And so we're providing you an overall score as well as scores against each of those. We also provide you qualitative responses from your employees. So they've actually given us qualitative responses via text or video, and we send those along. And then we have your scores. So how did you score against the national average in overall and against each of those 6 buckets, as well as your industry? How did you score against the average in your industry? And so what we're looking to provide is not just a shiny badge, but so much more than what that means. So that means a lot to people. And so, yeah, we're really excited to be coming to market. Pricing starts at $14.95. We made it extremely reasonable. And it's the quickest, easiest, fastest way for organizations in Canada, for now, to certify their workplace culture against the only index or benchmark made up of the opinions of workers in that nation. And we're really excited about the organizations that are coming forward. People really want to understand, how do we stack up against the average organization in our industry, in our country? And they want to leverage that to, tell the world about their incredible workplace culture and improve their employer brand. So we're really excited. We're working with a lot of great companies. You can find us at cultureindex.io if you want to check it out. You can look me up. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about it if they want to learn more. I think that's a good overall synopsis.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think it's really great. There's a couple things I really like from that. Not only the how do we stand up relative to other organizations, because that, competitive nature. But I know, as an outsider, like somebody who just comes in, who has no stake in a company, but the insights I get from being able to listen to people and hear it in their voice, it's the kind of stuff that often they won't tell their managers. Not even if it's bad. They won't even tell them the good stuff because of what it sort of implies. And having a third party being able to listen is just super valuable. And the last piece that I thought, actionable insights. Information on its own is good. You really need something that you can take away. So Kemp, go ahead if you had something.
No, I just wanted to add that anonymity is really important. Having a third party facilitate this kind of thing is key to getting the most honest feedback. And also, we protect the anonymity of the employees. And I think that's really important for them to know. I have a theory I've created around data. The value of data is 5% the numbers, 25% the analysis, and 70% of the value is derived from the actions that you take to improve your business based on the insights you derive from the data. And I think we suffer as organizations because only 5% of us do that final step. I think it's very limited. 70%, do the data. They collect the data. 25% do the analysis, and 5% take actions to improve their business based on the analysis and insights they derive. And so what I wanted to do with this program was leap that. So you get insights right away. We'll take the data, we'll do the analysis, we'll provide you with those insights based on, how you scored in those different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we finish up here, as you look at the actionable insights that one might take, obviously one of them is go to the Workplace Culture Index, Canadian Workplace Culture Index. Check it out, get some more information, reach out to Kemp. Kemp, what are 2 or 3 quick wins that our listeners can take to be able to start moving the needle towards having an improved and a highly effective workplace culture?
I think, as much as it seems a little hokey, some anonymous suggestion box is really key so that employees can put stuff in there. And people put jokes in there about the lack of paper towel or whatever, but you'll also get some true, honest feedback from people. So just creating some method for people to anonymously share their concerns or their joys. And then I think the second thing would be some kind of recognition system that doesn't require, that isn't top down. an opportunity for employees to recognize one another. And that doesn't have, they don't have to give each other gift cards or spend any money. But if you have a stand-up or a weekly meeting, instead of people talking about what they've been doing, ask them to highlight someone they've been working with and who's been doing a great job for them. That is a really positive way to build culture, is just to have a moment where people can recognize one another. And then start to form a group of people who are either a combination of senior as well as culturally excited and aware, and consider what a culture committee that meets monthly or quarterly looks like, and what the purpose is. Set a purpose for that group, and I think those three quick wins are going to yield a lot of benefits. And I think it's important for people to realize it's a lot like exercise. It takes time and diligence on top of those specific things to see the results. So, one of the things I struggle with when I'm working with organizations a lot, and I think less in terms of this particular project, but some of the other things I've worked on, is there's a lot of expectation for immediate results. And there are some things where you don't see immediate results. Eating well for a week and exercising for a week, you're probably not going to see immediate results, right? You need to do that for weeks and weeks. And then you're going to be like, wow, look at this. And culture is a lot like that mind and body. And I think people really need to think about that, and realize that you got to be in it for the long haul. And I think, I don't know if people know this anymore. It's an old reference, but What About Bob, a great Bill Murray film. And his psychologist tells him, listen, you just got to take baby steps. And I think that's a really good piece of advice. Bill Murray's character then takes baby steps to the elevator and takes about half an hour to get there. But I think we all need to take baby steps and not be afraid to go through the crawl, walk, run scenario. I know hopefully everybody knows what that is, right? You can't run if you haven't crawled yet. And so a lot of the times we're like, oh, great, we're going to do culture and we're going to run with culture. And it's like, well, have you walked? Have you crawled? Have you built the foundations so that you can run and be successful and not fall on your face?
Yeah, I love that. So if we take along that fitness analogy, so I heard two things that I think will complement that. Really like it. One is the habit is not actually doing the thing. The habit is the decision to actually make that motion instead of just going to the gym. Decide you're going to go to the gym. So first decide what you're doing. And the other is, when you go about this journey, first you will notice. Then the people closest to you will notice, and then everyone else will notice. And so it really is that process. So I really encourage everybody to follow along with Kemp and what him and his team are doing. It's awesome. I really, I value Kemp's opinion. That's why I wanted him on here to share with you. So Kemp, really, it's been a pleasure. And just thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think it was really awesome, and I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. It's been great talking to you, Anthony. And thanks to everybody who has watched to the end. Appreciate your attention, and hopefully we can connect in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Kemp. So my guest today has been Kemp Edmonds, who is the managing director of the Canadian Workplace Culture Index. Be sure to check out the information about Kemp and his team on the description below. I hope it helps everybody, take those baby steps, figuratively and literally, in terms of moving towards a highly effective culture and team. So thanks so much for joining us. My name is Anthony Taylor. This has been a live stream of the Strategy and Leadership